One of my most hated events of the year is always the White House Correspondents Dinner. I hate this event. I think that it's just terrible. There are many events during the year that I think are awful, including the State of the Union address. I think it's a monarchic institution. I don't care who gives it. But the White House Correspondents Dinner is particularly gross. And there are a bunch of reasons why it is gross. Now, listen, I happen to be a wealthy human who owns a tuxedo and has nice watches, and I don't mind going to fancy dinners. However, when the entire purpose of the dinner is to allow the people who are supposed to police the people in power, and the entire dinner is the people in power and the people who are supposed to be covering them with a gimlet eye, and instead they are hobnobbing with one another and with Hollywood elites, and they are hanging out, eating very fancy food together and telling nice jokes about one another and massaging each other's shoulders, you're giving the game away, and it's just yucky. And that's why I don't like this dinner. Not because it's a bunch of rich and famous people who are getting together, but because these are people who are not supposed to be congenitally friendly toward one another. The journalistic establishment is supposed to be policing the people in politics. The people in politics are supposed to be attempting to take care of the business of the nation. And instead, it's all of these people getting together and basically laughing at you. Okay, because everything that they complain about is a joke to them, but it is a reality to you. Every single thing that they complain about, every single thing that they joke about and they mock, they are mocking you. They're not mocking each other. Understand that when the White House mocks the journalists, they're not really mocking the journalists. They're tut-tutting them. They're slapping them on the back. It's like when you and your buddies go out for a drink and you're kind of breaking each other's balls. That's what it is. And when the journalists mock the White House, understand that they are not actually mocking the people in power. They're basically giving praise to the people in power by saying, look how nice our relationship really is under this. Secretly, this is what it's really like. Right behind closed doors, we're all smoking cigars together and massaging each other and giving each other swag bags. And that's really and Hollywood is there to kind of glue it all together. Right? This is the specter of the controlling apparatus in American life. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just reality. It's not a conspiracy theory to say that Hollywood and Democrats in the media and the Democratic Party, they all work together in order to create cultural institutions that cram down a particular point of view on you. And that's what the White House Correspondents Dinner is. Now, there used to be a time when it wasn't quite this, right? When George W. Bush was president, for example, the media really didn't like George W. Bush. George W. Bush really didn't like the media. And it was like they were taking a sort of break from hating one another to joke with one another. And it was somewhat nice. But when it has been Democrats and the media at the White House Correspondents Dinner, when it was Barack Obama, basically this event died. When Barack Obama became president, the media were so focused on giving him a fifth chakra Al Gore style massage that there was no way for them to get together with dinner without it also ending up as a one night stand. There was just no way for that to happen. And then when Trump was president, he said, I'm not going to go because why would I bother showing up to listen to you guys just roast me, but not in good nature, right? Because you hate me. You wouldn't roast me in good nature. By the way, there's a difference. I've been roasted. I've been roasted by both people who kind of like me and by people who hate my guts. And there's a wide scale difference between the two. And Trump said, I'm just not going to show. And now Biden is back. And so this dinner was much more like Barack Obama's dinner. Okay, so Joe Biden was the keynote, of course, and Trevor Noah was the MC. And I will say Trevor Noah was a lot better than I thought he would be. I thought that Trevor Noah was actually not terrible. He's told some jokes about both sides. You know, as a conservative, I will freely admit that I think that the jokes about the left were much funnier than the jokes about the conservatives. Joe Biden, however, is one of the least graceful human beings on planet Earth. I mean, he is graceless. His entire rant was not about himself. Right? Normally you go up there, if you watch George W. Bush's little comedic speeches during the White House Correspondents' Dinner, they were mostly self-effacing. He would get up there and he'd tell jokes about himself. Joe Biden gets up there and he mainly just tells jokes about how horrible his opponents are. He makes like one joke about the fact that he's unpopular, and then he just moves right into, and my opponents are awful. Also, I don't know how much dope they shot into this guy, but his energy level was so wildly out of tune with how energetic he has been in normal daily life that you figure that maybe Elon Musk bought Coca-Cola, inserted the cocaine, and then gave the first samples to the president of the United States. So Joe Biden began by joking about how only 42% were applauding him. This was his only decent joke of the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Joe Biden.
Thank you, Steve, for that introduction. And a special thanks to the 42% of you who actually applauded.
Can I just point out here that when you actually watch the footage here, it's really galling. One of the reasons that it's really galling is not just because of all of the cozy relationships in the room. It's really galling because all of these people kept us locked down for 2 years and they pretended that they cared deeply about COVID. And it was all about how We just have to protect you. But then when it comes time for them to get together in a very crowded ballroom, inches from one another, in tuxedos, then it's totally fine. By the way, Joe Biden said that he showed up. Anthony Fauci didn't. He said, it's still a pandemic. We can't just show up to the... Okay, so Biden showed up. He sat in the room. His concession to Anthony Fauci is that he wouldn't eat. Because apparently now there's some scientific evidence, according to Joe Biden, that if you eat, you're likely to get COVID. I'm going to have that one explained to me. Why? If you're sitting directly in proximity to somebody 6 inches away from you and screaming into each other's ears, because these dinners are very loud, that is significantly better than if you're sitting next to that person and eating. Anyway, so Joe Biden starts with that joke, and then it's all downhill from there. His worst joke of the evening was his attempt to go after Ron DeSantis in Florida. This is just a bad joke. I don't know who's writing this crap, but when you have the entire Hollywood comedic establishment at your disposal, theoretically, you should get somebody who can write a joke. Instead, he apparently got Ron Klain to write his jokes. This is such a botchery of a joke on every single level. Here we go.
Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear this wall down. Today's Republicans say, tear down Mickey Mouse's house. And pretty soon they'll be storming Cinderella's castle. You can be sure of it.
Is that what? Ha 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 ha. It's a questioning, huh? So that was kind of the nature, and that was his entire routine. His entire routine is about how terrible his opponents were. And then there was Trump as horrible plague. Here we go.
This is the first time the president attended this dinner in 6 years. It's understandable. We had a horrible plague followed by 2 years of COVID.
Because you see, Trump was like a plague, and I'm going to compare him to COVID. Now, imagine if Trump had made that joke about Democrats, how they were a horrible plague upon the land. Yeah, would have gone great. And then he joked about vaccinating and boosting and why he's there.
We're here to show the country that we're getting through this pandemic. Plus, everyone had to prove they were fully vaccinated and boosted. So if you're at home watching this and you're wondering how to do that, just contact your favorite Fox News reporter. They're all here, vaccinated and boosted.
Okay, so I'm just going to point out that, again, being vaccinated and boosted is no guarantee you're not going to get COVID and that you're not going to have a super spreader event. Just putting that science out there. That third booster shot does not prevent you from getting COVID. I know because, again, I was vaccinated, not boosted, and got COVID. My dad was vaccinated and boosted and got COVID. So, no. So, again, super, super funny stuff. And then he joked about Sean Hannity, and the suggestion here is that Sean Hannity is really bad because he used to text with Mark Meadows.
Fox News, I'm really sorry your preferred candidate lost the last election. To make it up to you, I'm happy to give my chief of staff to you all so he can tell Sean Hannity what to say every day.
Okay, well, see, the joke here that is really unspoken here is that Joe Biden's chief of staff tells the Democratic media what to say every single day. Yes, Sean tends to share the views. He's an opinion host. He tends to share the views of Republican administrations. The problem is that in that room, it's supposed to be objective media, and they share all the views of the Democratic administration. Ron Klain has all these people on speed dial. By the way, I do love the fact that Joe Biden is straightening his tie by pulling it directly down. He's so off kilter. He's like, I'm going to straighten my tie. It's solid stuff there. Okay, so Trevor Noah then gets up there, and this is the clip of the night. Okay, this is the one that's going to appear in all the attack ads about Joe Biden. So Trevor Noah gets up there, and he tells a joke about inflation. And the cutaway to Joe Biden laughing wildly at his own inflation. I understand he's trying to be good-natured and laugh at jokes about him, but this one is not going to play well in Peoria, as they say.
These people have been so hard on you, which I don't get. I really don't. I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
Joe Biden finds this hilarious. It is. I mean, after all, he's there in a tux. He's very wealthy. He owns a bunch of houses. He has $5.2 million in unexplained income while he was out of office. While Hunter was going around picking up bags of cash. What does he care? What does he care? And that is the point inside that room. These folks do not care about inflation. They're all doing fine. They're all doing great. They did great during the pandemic, by the way. This is the laptop class. They were sitting in their rooms holding their jobs. You were the one who was out of a job while they shut down your small business. And now they're back in the room hanging out with one another and chiding you about your vaccine status and being vaccine boosted. Because they're the special people. They're the special people. Now, good for Trevor Noah at least mocking this. So Trevor Noah did mock the fact that all these people had gotten together for their super spreader event.
It is my great honor to be speaking tonight at the nation's most distinguished super spreader event. No, for real, people, what are we doing here? Let's be honest, what are we doing? Like, did none of you learn anything from the gridiron dinner? Nothing, huh? Like, do you read any of your own newspapers? I mean, I expect this from Sean Hannity, but the rest of you, what are you doing here?
Well, I mean, why does it? He should expect that from the rest of them, because the rest of them during the entire pandemic were actively avoiding their own rules. The rest of them during the pandemic were out there partying. London Breed was doing it because her soul felt it. Gavin Newsom was at the French Laundry, so he really shouldn't be particularly surprised. Okay, at the very end of this, Trevor Noah finally did this routine. At the very end, a very moving tribute to journalism. And here's the thing, this falls on deaf ears because that room is just filled with a bunch of administration lackeys. And herein lies the point. Again, people treat the Democrats and the media and Hollywood as though these are separate apparatuses. They are not. The Democrats, Hollywood, the media, they are all part of one big social group. They all know each other. They all hang out together. They all love each other. They all have the same priorities. They mirror one another. They create an echo chamber that completely excludes you. This is how they end up in the bizarre position of embracing the most radical policies imaginable. You have to be in a real echo chamber to come up with the idea that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. But that can happen if you are Democrats being reflected by the media or being reflected by Hollywood. The White House Correspondents Dinner is a perfect encapsulation of how left side of the aisle politics actually works. So when Trevor Noah does these homages to the journalists who are out there working hard every day, let me just point out that those journalists are not out there working hard every day. Some of them are. The vast majority of them are not. They're just reading Twitter and they're reporting what their Democratic overlords would like them to say.
The reason we're here is to honor and celebrate the Fourth Estate and what you stand for. What you stand for. An additional check and balance that holds power to account and gives voice to those who otherwise wouldn't have one. Every single one of you, whether you like it or not, is a bastion of democracy.
Okay, so I'm just going to, again, point out here that when he says that you are the defenders of democracy, our journalistic establishment abandoned that pursuit a very long time ago. They did. They've not been the defenders of democracy in the United States for a very long time. They are selective defenders of policies that they like, and they are attackers of anybody who crosses them. How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic. I'd watch that. Make it happen, gang.